This is Damian Macy representing the Friends of the Marshall Public Library and our Oral History Project. It is Tuesday, August the 4th of 2015, and today we're visiting with Peggy Lucas here at the Marshall Library. Peggy lives in Terre Haute right now, but she's got a lot of Marshall ties and taught school here for a number of years in third grade. And with that, I'll introduce you to Peggy.
Hi, I am Peggy Lucas, and I was not born in Marshall, but I was born in my home near Sanford, Indiana, in the country. And my parents were John and Mary Vermillion. I had two older brothers and an older sister. And we lived out in the country all of our life, went to school, grade school, in St. Mary's Village, Catholic school, and then went to high school at Fayette High School, which is in New Goshen, Indiana. And then from there, I went to Indiana State. At that time, it was Indiana State Teachers College, Indiana State University now, of course. And I majored and became a teacher. That's how I got into Marshall, because my first teaching job, 1962, was in Marshall, Illinois. Remember that quite well. I had I had come over to visit school at the South School. They had the big old school in the newer part. And I had my godfather's wife taught school over here, Mary Heck. And she had had me come over and interview with the principal, and because they had some jobs coming up. And then I didn't get the job that was open first, because Marshall's very good about hiring local people and taking care of their own, which is great. So a local gal got the first job. And then I went down one day, had an interview in Sullivan, Indiana. Didn't want to drive that far. But a job's a job, you know, when you get out of college, you want that job. So I went down there, interviewed, and I had a chance to take third grade, or I think second or third, 2 job offers that day. And I told them I'd think about it, and I'd call them and let them know. I would had to go home and think it over. Got home, my mother said, of course, you know, we didn't have cell phones back then. No cell phones, no internet, no texting. So I got home, and my mother had gotten a phone call from Mr. Bush, Charlie Bush, and she said, well, she's interviewing for a job right now. And he said, oh my gosh, tell her not to take it. We've got a job for her. Tell her to come over tonight to the board meeting. So in 1962, came over to the board meeting, had lemonade and cookies served by Mildred Bush. And it was just such a homey atmosphere, you know. I know today the people that graduate, they have to have these books of background and all this stuff, and it was so homey back then. You came in, they talked to you, you know, like you were just one of the family. And
so the full school board was there at that meeting?
Yes, and had lemonade and cookies. Different, isn't it? And so then got hired that night, signed my contract, my first contract, third grade, South School.
I'll just back up, I guess, out of just curiosity. Did you leave the room and they have any discussion, or I guess I'm surprised that it would happen that fast.
Well, I guess, you know, they don't take as much time as they do today. I may have left. I really can't remember whether I left the room and then they discussed it, but I think the job was offered to me right then and there. Of course, I had been over, so I had actually met. I don't think I had met the whole board, though,
Probably not.
Before that, but I had been offered that other job that I didn't get, which was also third grade. So anyway, that's how I got my first job, and it was just already set then to go to work.
Did you hear anything back from Sullivan?
I called them and told them that I wouldn't be coming, so that they wouldn't know. Yes, and so then I started my career in Marshall, and my big sister was Ann Kyle, and we became great friends from that day on. All the rest of our teaching career till Ann passed away. And then I taught here for 4 years, and then I left for personal reasons, and I went up in northern Indiana for a change of life, change of pace. And then I met my husband, Don Smitley, who was from Marshall. And we got together. Of course, we got married. So I came back to Indiana, taught 2 years at Riley, Indiana, and had a chance to come back to Marshall. We were getting married. And so I got my same classroom back.
Oh, that's amazing.
Right across the hall from Ann Kyle. And there I spent the rest of my 40 years of teaching. But not at South. Once they changed, at that time South School was 1 through 6, and North School was, K through 6, and then the same thing at North. Then they began to make a change. 1 year, the first change was like, okay, let's put all the 6th grade together so that they all know each other before they go to junior high. So we didn't have 6 at South, they put them all at North. Then the next thing you know, they started switching, the 5th grade. And then pretty soon, it didn't take too long till South became preschool K through 3, K through 2. And North School became 3 through 6. So I ended up moving to North School because I wanted to stay with 3rd grade. So then I got to finish my career at the North building. But at first it was 2 separate schools. You probably remember that too.
My mother taught at one time at the South School. She taught 4th grade for, I think, a couple of years.
Yeah. And there was a big difference between North and South. I mean, the North End was the North End, and the South End was the South End. That's probably all I'm going to say. Although I heard lots of stories from the Marshall people,
Okay.
And then I think that's one reason they changed, to get the schools combined to be one Marshall elementary school system. All the grade levels together. Worked out really nicely, I think. People got used to it, and then now after so many years, they probably didn't even remember that it was never that way.
Those early years when you first came to Marshall, do you have some early memories or things that kind of struck you about coming to really a new town?
Well, yeah, of course, I didn't live here at first,
I know.
but then I was just traveling back and forth. It was just a small town I drove to work. But then when I got married and lived in Marshall, lived out on the edge of town, east edge of town, get my directions straight. And I always liked Marshall. That was a neat little town. People knew everybody, and it was a friendly town, I thought. And I thought Marshall had a lot to offer, for a small town. And speaking of the library, I remember coming to the library when I lived out there, riding my bicycle in the summertime especially. It was fun to ride the bike in, pick up my books, and I always thought they had a nice library here in town, for a small town library.
Where was the library at that time?
That's what I was trying to ask you. Where was it before it was, how long was it?
Where the meeting room is,
Okay,
that was a library for several years. Very tiny.
yeah.
Prior to that, it was on the 2nd floor of City Hall, the old City
Now,
Hall.
I don't know that I remember the
downtown.
city hall upstairs. Would it have been, I don't know the years. See, I was
And
thinking of
even
that
before
ahead of
that,
time.
it was where the Delaney Bank is now on the 2nd floor of a big building there. That would have been way before.
Yeah, because see, it was 62 when I started teaching here, and then I taught 4 years, left 3, came back.
I don't recall when that was. I was thinking it was late 60s when that was made into the library.
Yeah, so
Allison might
after
remember.
when I came back moved it back into Marshall, see, it probably.
Yeah, it would have been.
Yeah, and I don't remember when I first started teaching, but I know that throughout the years, they always had a summer program at the library, and we would walk the kids up. That would be one of our little walking field trips, was to walk up to the library and they'd show them. But I remember that being movies and upstairs. So that was in,
They did use the upstairs for a while.
yeah, and we'd have movies, and the children would get to look at the books and.
That would have been the West
Yeah.
Building.
Yeah, and of course that's the most that's what you wanted to remember most, because that was the whole time practically all until I
What do you
retired.
remember about the old South School?
Old South School. Well, the old building was there. Teachers.
Could you kind of describe it?
Oh well, goodness sakes, yes, I've got a painting of it too that Fred Higgs did of it. before because we knew it was going to be torn down. I have Fred, and he's passed now.
Right.
And he was the art teacher, and he painted the South School. Don't know if you've ever seen that painting.
Don't believe so.
Oh, it's a really nice painting of the old building. Of course, it was just a big old, how many stories did it have? 2 or 3. It had the basement and 2 stories.
2 stories officially. I think there was
Probably, maybe.
kind of a storage area or something on the 3rd, and then a funny looking bell tower,
And
cupola.
our teacher's lounge was a little room in the basement where we had our lunch. That was the teacher's lounge at that time.
That's where the dinner was served. Huh?
Because the other part didn't have. I was trying to think how many rooms. The old building, the 4th graders were in that old building, and 5th and 6th. But I was never in the old building to teach. I started teaching in the new building, the wing. But the lounge was downstairs in the little, almost like a boiler room type thing, But we loved it down there. We had lots of fun.
Cozy, huh?
Well, we went down there, and that was just kind of a place where we were the only ones there. No one bothered us. No one else wanted to be in the basement, I guess. But, it was just a big old brick building. But like I say, I did not teach in it. But that's where we ate lunch.
Maybe you did.
No, I did not. Because I started 3rd grade, and only went to the 4th grade in the brick building. But I have a brick from the building.
Good.
Yeah. So it was just a big old brick school building. You hate to see things like that go in a lot of ways, but you can understand the upkeep and everything of them. But
I went to the old North Side School.
The North is gone too.
Of course, it was gone long ago.
Yeah.
Before the South School.
That's right.
I don't know what year that came down, but
I don't even remember what year the South came down.
It's been since we moved back here, which would have been 75.
Because it was there quite a while.
Yeah.
And that might have been when they really started doing some switching around on the classes too, because they lost all that spacing. Had to put them somewhere if they weren't going to build on too much more. But yeah, that's my memory of the South School, of the big building. It's just, it was hooked on, and it was there. We were downstairs.
Going back just a little bit, you mentioned growing up in Sanford. Did you have some hobbies and all that you had developed then, and that you maybe still even participate in?
We were country children, grew up in the country. And so Dad farmed with my grandpa, drove a school bus, worked various places then after that. But my grandpa had the farm just up the road from us, which we walked up to my grandparents a lot.
And what was their name?
Vermillion. Orley and Branch Vermillion.
Okay.
My other grandparents were gone when I was born. My mother lost her mom when she was only 10 years old. So her dad raised her and her brother. And then her dad died right before I was born, so I never knew either one of those grandparents. I had one set, which was great, yeah. And we spent many, lots of time together, because they both died of a pretty old age, in their 80s or 90. And, but I don't know, of course we took 4-H when we grew up. We were 4-H children. And as far as hobbies, at that time, well, now I will say, we started singing career in the choir at church. And my sister and I, we harmonized, I always said if we had the right background, maybe we could have been like the Lennon sisters. But Mother played a little bit of piano, just kind of by ear. And we had an old piano at home. And later on, my grandmother had the piano. And my grandmother decided that my sister and I sang in the choir at church. And of course, then when we went to high school, they had the girls' chorus and mixed chorus, and we were in that. So we stayed into the singing part of the music. But when we were a little bit younger, my grandmother decided that boys needed some background too. So she gave the boys, my brothers, piano lessons. Okay? Well, you know how that went. The boys were in sports. And eventually, when they got in high school, their coach pretty much gave them a choice. You're either going to be in sports or you're going to play the piano, because you got to be at practice if you're going to be at sports. Well, you know what they gave up, piano. So I always laughed and I said, my sister and I said, my grandmother should have given us girls the piano lessons. We would have stayed with it probably, but we didn't take any formal lessons on piano, never played piano. But my mother played a little bit by ear, and one time when in high school, we had like a carnival in high school, like the kids had back those days, and they had a talent show. So my sister and I decided we would sing Santa Lucia. Probably know that song, Damien. And my mother played it on the piano, and we sang it. We did pretty well, we thought, And some other people thought we did well, because they came up to us after the thing was over and said, well, you guys should have entered the talent contest. You were good. We did, but they thought we were entertainment. So they didn't think we were part of it to vote for us. You know how that goes. So at that time, they always had to vote for the people and all. But anyway, we were kind of always into the singing part of. That's how we got into the singing. But as far as the music that I do now, I had nothing like that when I grew up.
You didn't get a recording contract then? Or
No. And it was strictly mostly church singing when we grew up, and high school chorus. And that was basically ours. I did not do solo work. My sister did. But I was an alto singer, and I didn't want to do solo work until I, later in life, started cantering and singing like that by myself, and then got into some country and bluegrass music that I do now. And I always said that, our music teacher, I said, oh, Mr. Bain, you'd be proud of me. I sing a solo now and then. But anyway, that was my kind of the hobbies back then. I sewed a lot, because I started that in home ec and 4-H both. And
do you still do some?
I can, but I don't much anymore. I kind of only when I need to fix something, basically. But I used to make most all the things I wore. I sewed a lot, even after I was teaching. And I would make things for the room, like pillows and curtains and things like that for the classroom.
Great.
So, yeah. And I still can sew, I just don't sew. It's easier now not to do it.
How about, that was obviously an area of home ec, they called it at that time. I'm not sure what it is now.
Yeah.
Did you get into the cooking side?
Yes.
And develop an interest in food preparation?
No. I'm kind of a plain cook. I'm not a big into the experimental type cooking. And I did cook. I mean, I always cook Sunday dinners and things like that, but it's basically good old country cook, what I call country cooking that I was raised up on, And, but cooking's not my favorite thing to do.
There's good restaurants around.
Yeah, good restaurants. I will cook, and I have done a lot of cooking, but like I say, it's just plain good old country cooking what I do. I can make good pie dough, so I do make my own pie doughs yet. My mother was a great pie dough maker and pie maker, so I do that. Yeah.
You mentioned going to Indiana State.
Yes.
Where you live, did you commute to school, or
Yes.
did you live on campus?
Oh no, we couldn't afford to live on campus. We commuted. In fact, there was a lady that lived in Sanford. We lived in the country. We really didn't live in Sanford. We were about a mile from there, and this lady worked at the college, and so we paid her for the ride to school. And she worked on the campus, so we rode there and rode home with her. So we didn't have to do the bus unless it was something going on or something. Then we could get the bus at St. Mary's, a city bus, at the village of St. Mary's.
Didn't realize that.
Yeah, it came down to the village. We had a little village store there, and the bus would come there and pick you up.
Oh, mate.
Yep, and then take you in the bus station, and then you'd get to the bus station in Terre Haute, and it would come out. It had a schedule, so you knew when it was. But we didn't ride that to school every day, because this lady that came right by our house, so she picked us up, and that's how we went back and forth to school. Didn't drive because we didn't have cars. Back then, I was the youngest of the 4 children. My sister went to nursing school. My brother, my oldest brother, went a couple of years college, then went into the Navy and made a career of the Navy. And my second brother was also a teacher, and so they had cars later on, but we didn't.
Was there a turning point somewhere that you said, I want to be a teacher, or did someone influence you in that field? Or?
When I was in high school, well, of course, my dad he had, you didn't have a choice. We were going to go to school because he had always wanted an education and didn't get it. And so he said his kids were going to have an education.
And they did.
And we did. We all four have an education. And so when I was in high school, I always kind of leaned to teaching. And then when I had to get more serious about it, we had an elementary school along with the high school there at Fayette. And sometimes the teacher had to be gone for some reason or another during the day. And so I used to be able to get out of my classes and go over and babysit or, watch the children for maybe an hour or two. And so that kind of determined me right there then that I definitely was going to go into teaching. My sister wanted me to come into nursing with her, and I said, no, I don't want to do that. I want to teach. And then what ended up being rather funny was that she did nurse, of course, for a while, but she ended up being a school nurse.
Oh, really?
So I thought that was kind of funny, that she ended up at the school and was a school nurse, and she would teach children about, she had classes now and then that she would have for the children on first aid and different things like that. So I said, see.
Was the teaching always in the elementary level, or did you think sometime, I like teaching college or high school?
No, always elementary.
Elementary.
Never thought about the high school. I don't know. I tried to think about a subject that I would want to teach, mainly, and I thought to myself, if I were going to be a high school teacher, I might have chosen home ec because I did like to sew, but then I knew there was the cooking and there was the other departmentals of home ec that I wasn't as crazy about, so I thought, well, I have to teach all that too, see? So I thought, nope, I'm just going to stick with elementary. Then when I went back to get my master's, I thought, well, do I want to go into administration or stay where I'm at? And I just wanted teaching. I had no desire to go into administration. So I just took my master's in elementary, the advanced programming of that, and stayed into teaching.
And what grades did you teach?
I taught third grade, all but 3 years of my 40 years of teaching. I taught, when I left Marshall, I taught up in northern Indiana for 1 year, third grade. And then I taught 2 years at Riley, which was part of Vigo County. And I taught, first year was a sixth grade, and they said they hired me to teach that grade because they had pulled the children who needed extra help in reading, and because I had so much background of teaching the reading in the lower grades, I could concentrate on their reading problems and that kind of thing. So I took that's the first job. And the funny thing about that, when I interviewed for that job, the guy said, now, I was living back home with my folks. And he said, now I know where you live in Riley. We won't send you any place like Riley, Costa County. So what was the first call I got? We have a job for you at Riley.
Oh, goodness sakes.
Of course, I took it. And then the second year there, that didn't work out too well because those children weren't too happy because they were the only 5th and 6th grade class not traveling from teacher to teacher. So they decided, no, that's not good. We'll go back to letting them travel too. So won't have a self-contained room anymore. So then they had a science teacher, they had a social studies teacher, they had a reading teacher. Your homeroom, you taught like spelling and that kind of thing. So they needed the class, but they didn't have an extra subject for me. So guess what I got to do? Everything with different classes. Like I had a homeroom that I taught I think I taught my homeroom reading and, language arts type thing. And then I taught 5th grade science, 6th grade science and 6th grade math. Then I taught another 5th grade, the language arts. So man, I had these children coming in, and I had to have everything prepared. You know, it wasn't like those other teachers. All they had to teach was science, one subject, and this one. And I'm thinking, man, it was a tough year.
That would have been quite challenging.
Ooh, it was, and then not only that, they grouped the children back then, ability-wise. Okay, so what 6th grade did I have? Top, math and science. So I said to the science teacher, I said, when school science, I said, well, now, how do you go about, what do you have special units you start with? You know, what kind of, with the equipment, what's best? Because he had been when they closed Riley High School, he had been a high school science teacher, and he stayed there, taught science to the, and he says, oh, I just kind of teach what I like when I want to. So I thought, okay, no help there. And of course, being the top students, they were on the go, and you know, so I was on my own. And the 5th grade, I think it was social studies, and that they took some field trips. Well, the other teacher, she had taught social studies for a long time, suggested the field trips, but guess who arranged them all? Me, because I had the top students and we were always there first. But it was an interesting year, but I decided then I was going to go back to a regular classroom, but then I got back to Marshall. So I got my
And you said
3rd
you
grade
taught
back.
3rd grade, all except for, was it 4 years? Of your 40?
3.
3, okay.
Yeah. Came back, got my same classroom back, spent there till I moved to the North Building and stayed in 3rd grade the whole time. Yep.
And
And
all
I
of that
thought-
period,
When I got ready to think about retirement, you know, when we'd have our retirement dinners, you'd hear the teachers get up and say, oh, I've taught 35 years, or I've taught this many years. And I said, I remembered some of the teachers that had 40 years, so I thought that sounded like a good round number. I had reached 40 years, which all along I thought 40 always sounded pretty good, you know. And so I reached the 40 years, and not only that, I said, I had a lot of students coming back to me that, you had my mother in class, you had my daddy in class. Yes, I did. And I said, I've taught this many years. Pretty soon they're going to come in and say, you had my grandmother in class. So I said, I'm going to get out here. So I'm tired.
that would be, I think, rewarding also.
Well, it probably would have been. And you know, there was a little young gal that I had that did marry young and have a child young. And I think that I could have almost gotten there pretty soon. Oh dear. So anyway, that was kind of how things
With
got
40
started.
years of teaching, Peggy, you must have had some, quote, frustrations along there somewhere too.
Oh.
Is there anything you can really say that, oh gosh, I really didn't care that for that?
Oh, we
in my
went through
teaching
several
career?
things, you know. We went through the new math era.
Oh, yeah.
Not quite sure what the new math was all about, but none of us liked that. Yes. You know, it had this strange things that they thought we should teach it. When we, toward the end of the career, the testing program, the emphasis put on testing, too much. So I was glad to get out of some of that. And it's entirely different today.
I'm trying to think, there's a term for it. It's like some of the testing and there's no child left behind or something.
Yes,
Part
yes.
of that.
That's tough too. That's so hard to understand because, you know, you have a variety of children. You hope they all succeed, and they do to a point, but they can't all reach the same level. And you would hope they could, but they
And
can't.
some of them never will or
No.
never could probably.
No.
New stability's not there.
I've had a lot of students that, you know, had trouble with reading, and no matter how hard you tried, smart children otherwise just couldn't read. Read the test to them in social studies and science, they could ace it, knew exactly. They were good listeners, they learned, they were smart, but reading just was a problem. For one reason or another, you know. And we had help, because we had reading help too, because we had special classes that they went to for reading and extra reading and stuff, which helped them.
Well, there just seems to be a lot of controversy in education in general right now.
Right.
And this whole thing of dropping cursive writing.
Oh,
What is your
my.
opinion of that? I have mine, but
I definitely have mine. I think it's ridiculous.
it's a disaster, isn't it?
It is. How are these boys and girls today going to write their name? You know, when you had me sign a paper, a signature to me is a written signature.
Yeah.
Because you'll have the line that says signature, and then you'll have a line that says print. So now what does that mean? They want a printed one and a written one. They won't know how to write it. Is that sad?
But there's
And
writing
what's the-
checks, there's everything,
what's
all
the
kinds of
purpose
stuff
of
that
it?
you use the writing for. I
I mean, I know people have their own form of writing as they develop and grow up. And, you know, they'll, even like you're saying, checks, they'll even kind of more or less sometimes print those too, because that's what they like to do. But there's just, to me, there's a way you've got to know how to, what if they get a letter or a note from somebody, they can't even read it because it looks different. When are they going to develop that skill?
So do you think this is stepping back
Oh, I don't know.
in regressing in education?
It is to me.
I agree.
I'm glad we're in agreement, aren't we?
Yeah, but I don't know if that's our parameters of the period we grew up.
I don't know either. I don't know. I just can't imagine why they did that. I see no purpose in it. I mean, I know they want the children to be able to type on a keyboard, but they know how to do that anyway. And it doesn't take that much time, extra time, to introduce some writing to them, practice it. I really don't know why they did it. I don't know.
It just seems to me like it's as the old saying goes, a train wreck waiting to happen.
Oh, I think so. I think, oh my gosh. So
Peggy,
I don't
when you
know.
were young, did you have some chores and things in the house and home
Oh,
that you
yes,
had to do?
we had to work. Yeah, you did. And
You
we
mentioned
weren't
farm.
paid, yeah. Well, yeah, we farmed. The dad farmed for my grandpa. We had a garden, so we had to help with that as far as the outside garden. Inside, yeah, we helped with the dusting and the cleaning of the house, you know, with Mom. Yeah. Laundry. Hung it outside on the line. We didn't have a dryer. Mother didn't have a dryer. I always had a washer, but she had the washer. We had the wringer.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the wringers?
Oh, yes. Very messy.
And then you took them out and hung them out to dry. And you had to hang them right. You probably didn't have to hang laundry being a boy.
Uh-huh.
Or did you hang
I
laundry
did.
too? Yeah. And the whites had to hang together.
Mm-hmm.
And the socks together. And you had to
Mhm.
hang the shirts with the tail
Mhm.
because you didn't want. Yeah.
Did
Grew
you
up
ever
that
put
way.
the curtains on the old curtain stretchers?
Oh, yes. Now, you know, my sister forgot about that, but I don't. They had little nails,
Mhm.
and you stretched them.
Boy.
Prick your fingers,
Yes.
and then you didn't want to tear the curtain. And it's amazing to me how you could stretch those nylon and whatever kind of material they were, lace,
Lace.
all of them were lace, curtains, and they didn't tear very often. And you stick them on those nails. You have all these little nail holes in your curtains. They always look nice. Oh yeah, all across the top, down the side.
And across the bottom.
Yeah,
And
all across the bottom.
when you pulled them off, it looked almost like they'd been ironed.
I know
and
it.
starched.
I know it. It was really kind of neat.
Yeah.
I've not seen one of those things around for years and years.
I guess we're talking about old times, Peggy.
Yes, I guess so.
Kind of
That's
coming
all
back
right.
to this thing with the education. When you were teaching, or maybe when you retired, had the computer been introduced to the classroom yet?
Yes, just starting basically, a beginning. We had a computer in our classroom, one computer, and we had the big floppy disk, not little. We had the big one to start with. And the only thing, when we first got the computers, about the only thing we did on them was programs on the floppies, where you put it in, and then there would be like a reading program where they could do, or some math activities that they could do. That's how we started. And that's all it was. I mean, it was just kind of an extra thing for them to do. Then the discs got smaller. There were still those discs, yeah. We had just one in each room. And now, I didn't do, just before I was retired, they were beginning to put grades on the computer. You could put your grades on. And you could, I don't think we had to, but now they do. I mean, now everything's on the computer. But it wasn't it wasn't in that much. But that was my first experience with computers. And I thought, well, I don't need one. Well, of course, then once you got one, and the more you got to do on it, then when the internet came on, you could do interesting things there. And then I got one at home. Because when we first got it, they said, now, if you want to take your computer home in the summertime and practice on it, you can do that. And so I did, but you had to get your own modem and hook it up. And so then it wasn't, but just having it home just a short period of time, I decided I want my own. So then I got my own computer. And then you got everything.
Then you got hooked.
Yeah, you do. Well, I did. I have a computer. I still have my desktop computer with double screen, so I can monitors, so I can put something over here on this monitor and work on this monitor. Okay? And have my Kindle when they came out. Still like to read a book, but I did get a Kindle Fire. Thought, why not? Then I was up at my brother's, and the little kids had the iPad. Oh boy, that's really neat, you know. So yeah, okay, I gotta have an iPad too. And then you get your smartphones, you know. So what can I say? Technology kind of takes over.
I was going to say, you have truly converted, it sounds like,
Yeah,
to modern
right.
technology.
Yeah, I don't know everything, and when they don't work, don't ask me to do anything with them. But yes, I do get involved in them, I will admit. Kinda neat.
And not trying to get into family history or anything, but you mentioned you married Don.
Yes, I did, and we were married for almost 25 years. We made 24 years, and then he passed. And he had Alzheimer's, as you probably know that.
Yeah.
So it was quite a ordeal to go through. Very sad, very sad, very sad situation.
And you were still teaching.
Yes, I was. Yes, I was. I was still teaching, and it got to the time where I had to hire help for home because he was not, of course, couldn't work anymore. And so it made it kind of rough for, you know, that period of time when I had to have help at home and teach at school. And then when it got really bad to where he had to go to the nursing home because I needed help, and that was only when I had to give in, you know. And then when he was near his time, it was like, you know, from day to day, you didn't know if you're going to be able to stay at school or not stay at school. But we had really 24 wonderful years, and he had a wonderful family here in Marshall. Lots of Marshall ties, and I still have my Marshall family. I call them my Marshall family because I still keep very close touch with the nieces and the nephews. One brother is still alive, and that's Dick. He's the only one left. Wonderful family, wonderful life, and yeah.
So then, go ahead.
Then after that, I stayed in Marshall to teach, but I moved back to Terre Haute eventually. I just decided that I was doing some activities over there. That's when I got into some country dancing, some friends. And I wasn't into the music yet, though. Just some dancing. And then eventually I met my husband that I'm married to now, but it was not through the music. It was just through a nostalgic ball game. He was into music with some friends I'd gone to high school with. And I went to a nostalgic ball game where the old high school were playing each other in Terre Haute, Vigo County. And my friend and I, we were cheerleaders together in high school. We went to the game and pretended like we were their cheerleaders and rolled our jeans up and put the white shirts on, the neckerchiefs, and made pom-poms, you know. And then the friend that we knew that was playing had asked us to go to the Cracker Barrel with his group that he had with him to eat. So we did, and that's where I met my husband that I'm married to now. And that's how I got into the music, because he was into the bluegrass music. He taught me a little bit of the guitar to chord. That's how I started.
His name is Roy?
His name is Roy Lucas. And he taught me the guitar, which was the first time I'd ever touched one in my life. And in fact, it was really kind of funny because I kind of started singing. The singing wasn't foreign to me, but the songs were, you know. And I remember learning a couple of songs to sing with him, and he says, the only problem is, he said, you've got to get out of that church voice and get some country voice to it.
Oh, dear.
Don't pronounce all your words so plain. I thought that was kind of funny, you know, because I was used to doing church music, you know, it's a little bit different style. And so then that's how I got involved in the music I do today. We had a band for several years and sang and mostly played the rhythm on the guitar. And then the little gal that had played bass taught me to play the bass, so that when she wanted to play something else, she could, and I could play bass. So now I do the upright bass, and I've taken some mandolin lessons. And
Were those from
Louis Pope
Louis
Joy.
Pope Joy?
Yes, yes. And Linda Pope Joy was the little gal that was in our band.
Okay.
And yeah, we played. We had a band for several years, and we played all kinds of things. Played at Pizza City and Terre Haute. And the funny thing was, when I was starting my guitar and learning bass, I would bring it to school with me, and the kids loved it because I'd sit and play songs, and we'd sing, have a little time extra. We'd bring your guitar, Mrs. Lucas, bring your guitar. Okay, bring my guitar and sing a little bit and play. Had one student teacher who enjoyed singing like that. And so when I had her, we would sing together with the kids, and they loved it. We'd do a song or two and everything. So.
Have you kept track or followed any of your prior students along through their career to kind of see and know what they do?
I am on Facebook with several of my third grade students, which is really neat.
Be great.
Yes, yeah. See their families.
Yeah.
How they've grown up, how many children they have. It's really quite neat, to think, and they think so too,
Sure.
my third grade teacher, and I say, my third grade student, So yes, have kept in touch with some of them that way. In fact, just today, we were at a restaurant eating over in Terre Haute, the Delicious restaurant, having bite breakfast this morning after we took our dog. And the little waitress, she came over and she said, "You look so familiar to me. Do I know you?" She said, "I can't place you, but you look so familiar." I said, "Well, are you from here?" "Well," she said, "I am now." I said, "Well, what about Marshall?" "Oh, you were my third grade teacher."
Then it gelled.
Wasn't that neat? I mean, I love it when they come up to me because, when you haven't seen a third grade student for how many years, they don't look like they looked in third grade unless you have followed them along through the years. But other than that, if you haven't seen them, yeah, so she was fine.
I guess that's the way of some of the present new technology.
Yeah.
As you say, the Facebook and all
Right.
permits you to do that.
Right.
Where before.
Yeah. And unless, some families you knew and you have followed because of one way or another, you see them as they've grown up. But others you haven't seen since they left, well, maybe sixth grade because they were still at South School, or North School until sixth grade, and then went on to junior high. Once they went there, you never saw them very often. But yeah, it was so neat. So that happens to me quite often.
I'm sure.
Yes, and I am glad when they tell me who they are and holler at me because they'll recognize me.
Yeah, the other way.
Yes, yeah. So yes.
You say a third grader after 25 years.
Yeah.
Sure don't look the same.
Right. They're grown up, have families of their own, and everything. And I know one time I ran into one who I had in third grade, and she talked about the pictures, and I took over one of my photo albums that I had made while I had the children, and so that she could look through the pictures. I have all my yearbooks from when they started. Now, not the very first years of teaching because we didn't have yearbook, but they went back pretty far. I can't remember the first year we started elementary yearbooks.
Okay, you kind of caught me by surprise there.
You don't
I
remember
was
that?
not aware that they...
We had elementary yearbooks. As a parent, you surely had some because we had them South and North both.
Marcus didn't go there, South.
Oh, not North either? Oh, they didn't go here to school.
Yeah, in 8th grade and freshman when we moved back from Chicago.
Oh, you were not here for elementary. Okay, well, yes, we had elementary yearbooks.
And they didn't in the
I bet
schools
they have
were in?
some here in the library.
Probably
Well,
do.
I don't know whether they would have here in the library or be at the school libraries.
Hadn't thought of that, but
I have every one that I have that started, and I wish I remember what year we started because I'm not sure. They were black and white to start with, no color. Eventually, we got into some color and hardback covers. They were softback covers to start with, and then for some reason they dropped them for a couple of years, and then we finally went back to them again, which I was so
Yeah.
glad because it is so neat.
it's something I was not aware of.
Yes, yearbooks. Yeah. So I still have mine, so it's really kind of neat to go home. When I see someone, like today, the little guy I saw today, I can dig out my yearbook she told me about when she was in 3rd grade. And if I don't remember, then I think, yeah, there she is. Then I took, in latter years, I took a lot of pictures. And then I made, over the years, I put them in albums. And of things that we did, like plays and programs and field trips and stuff.
I'll ask a question. Did you label them with date and names?
The pictures?
Pictures.
Well, now, I don't have the names of people on every picture, but
That's the problem with so many.
yes, but I have the yearbook picture of all the students that I had that year, okay? So that has the names, so that when you go back and you see the field trip that you took to a park or something, you see the children, and there they are over here, so yeah, you know who they are.
Okay.
So that you can refer back to the home page of that year's teaching, because in my albums that I have made, like these so many pages are this class, and then this page, so many pages, is the next year. So it depends on how many pictures I took. As the years went on, I took more pictures, so I had less years. The first album I went back to my sewing days, right? And I used material cover and all that kind of stuff, made a really
Neat.
pretty album cover. And it might have had 5, 6, 7, 8 years of teaching in just that one, because I didn't take as many pictures. But later on, when you took half the album, it would be one whole. You might only have 2 or 3 classes. So I've got kind of a stack of them. But yeah, I have them all. And it's kind of neat to keep
Yeah,
them.
that's-
Once in a while, I'll run into somebody that wants to see them, Now, when I'm gone, you know where they'll go. Nobody will want them.
You're
Unless
just,
somebody,
you're just a kid yet.
well, I can't say that, but it's still kind of neat to have them anyway. So
So you're living in Terre Haute
I'm in
now.
Terre Haute. Yep, back to Terre Haute.
And
Finished my years of teaching driving from Terre Haute to Marshall again. Like I started driving from Terre Haute to Marshall, ended driving from Terre Haute to Marshall.
you must have learned every pothole in the road. by
Yeah,
then.
pretty much so. But all the time in between, almost 25 years, I lived in Marshall.
Do you see a lot of changes in Marshall now that you have been away from it for a while, but yet get back?
Well, yeah, some. Some changes, but some things are still the same. Still have Friday night concerts at the bandstand. The bandstand's still there. The kids still run around it when they hear music. And that's happened I can remember that all my life. And it still happens. Buildings have changed, and businesses have gone that aren't here. Because the newer things like the Walmart and the things take over, and the little businesses that dress shops and things they had downtown, of course, are all gone. Small towns change.
With the living in Terre Haute and being probably now acclimated to a much larger city, you think you'd ever want to come back to Marshall?
Well, I would. I would come back to Marshall if it were the convenient thing to do. I mean, it's just that you have a house now, and the moving deal and our activities are over there now that I'm retired. And had my activities not been over there when I retired, had I not remarried and had the activities in Terre Haute, I would have stayed in Marshall. And even then, we considered, because I did have a home here in Marshall. And we kind of talked about staying in Marshall.
Really?
But it's just that everything was over there that we were doing. And he was still working, so he worked
Oh.
over there. And our musical activities were all over there. So it was just more convenient to be over there. My mother was over there. And after a period, she lived in Maryville for a while. And after she sold the farm after my dad died, and she got out of the farm. And then she lived at Maryville, and then when she got sick and had to go to the nursing home, and there was lots of things involved with her taking care, and it was, it was just convenient to be back in Indiana. But as far as would have stayed in Marshall, yeah, I would have.
You mentioned your voice and liking to sing and probably moving away from that church voice. Do you sing at all in church now?
Oh, yes. Yes. I cantor at my church all the time.
Which is what church?
St. Mary's Village
Village?
Church. Yeah, the little church in the village where I grew up. Of course, Mother was still going there, so it was nice that when I moved back to Terre Haute, I started back at that church because Mother was there, and it was my home church. It was not the big church, and it was just nice to go back there, near the campus too, which is nice too. And it was just nice to go back to the little village church, so I stayed there. That's my church. Yeah. And I still sing there, and practically every Sunday.
Do they have a choir?
We don't have a choir. When I
think
first
so.
went there, started going there, we had a small choir. And I sang in the choir. I did not do the cantoring. We had a gal that did. I had never, of course, over here in Marshall, how many years I was in that choir.
Quite a few.
Alto.
Strong out there.
And that was my thing right there. And I think the only time I soloed was at Christmas time one time. For some reason, we did a song, and I sang with the men.
I remember that, but I don't remember what the song was.
I have forgotten too. I used to remember. But I was singing with the men. For some reason. I don't know. I can't remember. But anyway. But I can't do any cantoring back then. But as I say, when I got to St. Mary's Village Church, and we had a little gal that did, and after I started singing with the band group and kind of had gotten into actually singing a song by myself, then they suddenly said, well, why don't you cantor once in a while and help out Sherry, So that's when I started then doing that. And that's when I said to my music teacher, Mr. Bain, you would be proud. Because I'm actually standing here singing alone.
That's great.
But I was always, I was never insecure when I sang alto. I could lead that alto section.
I know.
And it was no problem. But one year, he decided he was going to give me a solo part at a Christmas program singing Away in the Manger. And I got off. I was so embarrassed. I swore I'd never sing solo again. And
Away in a Manger.
And at the same time, again, I was in mixed chorus, girls' chorus, and my sister and I and 4 others had a sextet that, we sang together. And, man, I led that third alto, no problem whatsoever. But don't give me a solo part, because I'm not going to do it. But give me my alto, yeah, I can solo my alto, but don't make me stand up there by myself.
Oh, I love it.
So it was kind of a new deal for me to get into that, and it's been good for me. Now I don't think anything about it. Well, I do sometimes, but basically I do it and think, well.
I think some people, it's just a matter of getting up there and looking at all the people looking at you.
Yeah.
Some people come unglued with that.
Yeah, no. In fact, I did a wedding this past weekend. Done a lot of funerals, but I have not done a lot of weddings. There you go. Anyway, anything else?
Yeah, is there a person in your past who really just kind of influenced your thinking, or you would say really steered you maybe into teaching or something? You was just a very important figure in your life.
Probably the most important teacher in my life was Sister Kathleen at my grade school. I had her from probably 5th grade through 8th grade. Loved her dearly. And so she was probably one of my biggest influences.
Okay.
And then, of course, when I went to high school, probably, even though I didn't go into math and science, probably our math and science teacher, Mr. Carr, was probably one of the teachers that I enjoyed and, thought that was a cool thing. And probably I would maybe math wouldn't have been, it would have been a second choice for me because I did like math in high school, through school. So.
Did you ever think of the music career?
You know, I didn't because I couldn't sing solo.
Back to that one.
Didn't play any instruments.
Okay.
Never thought about music because didn't think I had enough background for one thing, as all I did was sing. In choir and choruses. So I never really thought about music because you had to have more background than I would have had. In elementary, I had to take piano.
I thought so.
Had to learn how to, I can remember one of my music classes I had to take, because see, I had to be able to teach music
It's the rhythm
and art, because if you didn't, you had to be able to PE. So when you're an elementary teacher, you're qualified to teach all those classes if you have to. Now, I wasn't qualified to take and be a PE teacher or an art or music teacher, but I was qualified to teach music, art, and PE to my class. My license, if your school didn't have it, then you were responsible. And I remember that one class I had to take in college, you courted, you did some courting along with singing. You had a little song here, and you had to kind of learn a little bit of the piano that way. Didn't really learn to play the piano, but you kind of courted the songs. But see, all that wasn't enough music to teach music. So.
When we look back at our lifetimes, is there an event in the world, some event that has just made a tremendous impact on you?
An event in the world. Well, I was too young for the wars. I think probably moon travel. Space. First shuttle out there, first man on the moon. That to me was probably amazing.
My mother taught...
Depression, I don't remember well enough. I do remember as I grew up having, Mom and them having coupons or stuff for certain stuff, but I was too young to really be affected by that, So my memory's not much about that.
My mother taught third grade for many, many years. And I remember later in life, she got worried because she had told the children when they were talking about space that no, the moon would never, they would never be able to get there.
Yeah, right.
And she said, I told them for years when this subject, and we talked about the planets and all, that no one would ever be able to get there. And she says, and here they did it.
Right. And now they're studying all these other planets way far away that they thought they'd never know anything about either. But yeah, I think probably as far as that part of life, that would be the most outstanding part. And
it's kind of scary where we go from here, too.
Yes, it is.
Is there, we've all got these modern things around us. Is there a particular modern convenience or something that you have or use that you say, I just couldn't live without that?
Oh my, which one?
Or several.
Yeah, I don't know, modern convenience. Well, I think the telephone's a pretty good one for communication, I like that one. I'm not quite sure how you'd communicate, without that. 2
tin cans and a string.
Yeah, right. And as far as home, I don't know, gosh. Electricity, all your electrical things. Electricity that you can plug all your things in, air conditioning and things, and refrigerators and ice box. We grew up in ice boxes. So I think that's a pretty good one too. I would live without those things today. I love the books. Thinking of times, I love books and TV shows about the Old West. I always have. I like that era. But if I lived back in that era, I thought, I don't think I really want to live in that log house out in the middle of nowhere and do all that work they do. But I like it. I like the era, but I don't want to live in it.
I think sometimes people will say, oh, the good old days. Well, there's a nostalgia part of it, but when you come to way you had to live,
Right.
I don't think too many people would really want to go back there.
You know, I think that's true too. They say that, but then
sounds
when you
glamorous.
take individual things, no, I wouldn't want that part of it.
Right.
I think I like the simplicity
Yeah.
as far as liking it, but yet I would not want to be living without the air conditioning. Oh, I would not want the coal furnace that I had to go downstairs and bank the fire. And if I did it wrong, my dad, you know, he would teach us kids how to bank it.
You get
So
smoke
it
up
would
through the
stay, and then
house.
the next morning, if you didn't bank it right, it would be out, and oh my gosh, would he be upset, you know? But I wouldn't want that. So the good old days were good, but
To a point.
yeah, I think that I'm with.
I think we're on the same.
I
same
think most
wavelength
people
there.
are that way too when you stop and think about it.
Peggy, it's been a delight talking
Well,
to you.
it-
Now, if
it-
you were on the other side of the water and somewhere in Europe, say, and you said you were from Marshall, a little town in Illinois, someone said, Marshall, where on earth's that? What's that about? What would you tell them why this might be a good place that they would want to visit at least? Tell them about it.
Well, I think I would tell them that Marshall is again, a nice, friendly little town. It's got a nice school system that if you had a family to grow up in Marshall. And I just think it's a nice little town. Doesn't have everything, but it has enough.
Enough. There's
Yeah.
the point. Well, thank you so much,
Thank
Peggy. It's
you.
been a
Hope we
real,
didn't chat too much.
real delight visiting with you, and you did exactly what we're
you
looking for,
wanted.
is for
Okay.
people to tell about their life and some of the things they remember.
Right. Well,
I
it's
appreciate
been
you
fun.
taking the
It's been
time
fun
out to be
thinking
with
about all
us.
the old times, you know.
Oh,
to
yeah,
talk about.
it's really, really most appreciated.
And I bet you've had a lot of fun talking with different people. Yeah.
And most of them